You're listening to Conversations That Matter with your host, Terry Conrad.
Okay, we are having a conversation that matters with Valerie Garcia, who's the Director of Training at Integra Remax out in Mississauga, Ontario. And I want to welcome her back because the truth is we tried this once before, but as my husband loves to joke with everybody else that Terry loves tech, but tech does not love Terry back. So we had some recording issues. So we are re-recording this, and I thank you so much for your patience, Valerie. And but I definitely wanted you back because you have so much great stuff to offer to my audience. I assume that I will have one someday. In the meantime, thank you. How are you doing? It's a nice summer hot day.
Yeah, it's not too hot here today, but it is summer, and I'm enjoying that.
And you're working from home, I see.
I am. I'm working from home today.
That's lovely. Good for you. And does that mean you get to skip out into your garden? Because I know you love to garden.
No, but I have been kind of looking out the window at it a couple of times today.
Teasing you, is it?
There's a hammock out there that keeps looking at me.
Oh, you posted a picture of a hammock the other day, and I was like, that wouldn't be so bad. That would make for a nice change of scene.
I know. I was tempted to do this conversation in the hammock, but oh well.
Oh well. Let me kind of give people an idea of who you are if they possibly don't know you, which I can't imagine they wouldn't. First of all, Michael Thorne introduced you to me a while ago, and he said, "You will love Valerie. She's just like you." And the truth is we've identified that there are many, many, many similarities. However, the fundamentally largest, I think, difference would be that technology actually loves you back.
Oh, I don't know about that. Not all the time. I've had lots of opportunities where things haven't gone correctly in the technology sphere. And to be honest, I still don't know how to use any of the remotes that live in my house.
Oh.
So
that is so funny. The universal remote is still like, how is that not existing? Anyway.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. Valerie, I want people to get a chance to kind of know who you are. So first of all, you've just had this great big promotion within Remax Integra, and you are now, can you explain to everybody kind of what it is that you do?
Yeah, so I get the fun job, and I mean that honestly. I love my job. I get the opportunity to really sort of shape and manage the curriculum and training for all of Remax Integra North America. So that is Ontario, the Atlantic provinces, 8 states in the U.S. So it's a fairly large territory, and we've got 5 trainers on my team. And so I'm just basically assisting them in their different regions, shaping the curriculum and the training opportunities that we provide to our 17-ish thousand Remax agents.
So, just a few.
Yeah, just a few.
No small task, And you are, I know, like I just saw on Facebook here a minute ago, you guys are running a program right now called Camp Remax.
Yeah.
I love that idea. So it's like, it's all online.
Yeah, so Camp Remax is in its second year, and last year we saw a decline in the amount of training events and stuff that we were scheduling in the summertime, and agents were obviously busy and, summer market, but also going on vacation and going to the cottage, and we wanted a way to just continually to reach them every week throughout the summer with something, and so we came up with Camp Remax, which was 8 weeks of webinars in the summer. Just basically a different, 20 minutes on a different topic every single week, something that you could watch on your iPad or your iPhone if you're out running around, if you're at the cottage. But we also encouraged our offices to tune in live as a group and, just kind of make a party of it every Thursday morning in the summer. And we had a great turnout last year. We had about 1,000 people on Camp Remax for the summer from many different countries around the world. So came back again for a second year this year. And again, we have just about around 1,000 people signed up in about 15 countries.
Wow.
Globally, which is pretty awesome. And we just did first week this week, and full swing. We're in full swing for the summer. So it's a fun project.
It's a really fun project. And, like when I was watching it, it had like, the little visual of the car with the packed trunk and like everything else. So that's super fun. I love the concept. This is touching on a subject that's near and dear to my heart. As you know, I bleed for new agents and the struggle and the lack of training that is often not provided for them at their brokerages. And I'm just wondering, what is it about you're a company that clearly understands the value of ongoing education and making sure that your agents have the tools that they need.
Well, I mean, I'm really, really blessed to work for owners who are very forward thinking and want to make sure that we provide whatever we can to the agents and brokers and administrators and license assistants to help them do the job that they need. I would say that we've had training in Integra for several years, but I came on board. My history is long and varied with many different brands, but I came on board to Remax about 3 years ago, and they gave me the opportunity to really just take my vision for training and run with it. So I think that that's been a really fantastic thing, in that we have the ability to sort of look forward every year and figure out what's going to be trending in the new year. What are the topics that our agents are going to be concerned about? What are the things that are really going to be pain points for them? And really just shape our training for the new year around that. And I think really that's been the success around the training that we've done in Ontario Atlantic, especially because we have the ability to just really tailor it exactly to what agents need. So whether that's Pinterest one year, or it's mobile websites or video, or you name it, we've probably pretty much done it
Yeah.
in the last couple of years. But it's really just around what the agents need, and we do regular surveys and questions. And I get
That
really involved on Facebook with the agents, saying like, what do you need? What's your so paperless is huge right now. Just how do I do it? How do I use Evernote? What are the different components of going paperless in my business? And how does it all tie in together? And so, we kick off our year every year with our big event in January, which is Kickstart in Toronto. We have about 3,500, 4,000 agents that attend that. So it's a great event, 2 days. And we really kick off our training curriculum for the year with that event by
Right.
saying, we hear all the different training topics that we think are going to be of interest to you this year. And we bring them all together with different speakers and panels. And that gives me a really good indication of the sessions that are the most popular,
Right.
is really good indication of what the year is going to hold. So, I think it's just based on exactly what they want and need has really been why it's successful. It's not based on what we think they need, or sometimes it's a little bit like,
Yeah.
hey, you guys need to pay attention to this, but it's more based on exactly what the agents are asking for, as opposed to just kind of just choosing a couple topics and going with it for a couple of years.
Interesting. Let me ask you this. How often do you think agents struggle with, spending too much time chasing the bright shine? I mean, I know this has been talked to death, but it's still an important question that no one really has answered well yet. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the subject.
Well, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with this whole shiny object thing. And I know we're both going to be at Inman in the next couple of weeks
Yes.
coming up, and I noticed that there's a panel there that's called the shiny object
Yes.
syndrome, and they're going to be talking about. But it's not even going to be about like whether you should or should not chase shiny object. It's going to be all about the shiny object.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting to me is that like shiny objects are different to everybody, right? Like I have met, and don't laugh, but I've met agents where a smartphone to them is a shiny object. So when we say a shiny object, like we're talking about something that distracts you from
Right.
something you should be doing.
Right.
Right. So, like you're like a cat,
Yeah.
whatever.
Squirrel.
And so edit that part out. And so, I think, oh my gosh, like a smartphone should not be a shiny object.
No.
It should be a basic in your toolbox now. This isn't 1992. This
Right.
is, this should be something that everybody has and everybody uses. And, I had an agent say to me last week, like, for her demographic, using a smartphone is still, very frustrating and difficult. And I was like, honey, you are 50. You might as well just roll over and die now, because the reality is that, these are, so I think to answer your question, instead of going off on a tangent, is that, agents spend a lot of time getting distracted with things that maybe they shouldn't be distracted with. But I also feel like it's very difficult to get them to focus on the things that they should
Yep.
be paying attention to, because I do think that there are things out there that people need to adapt into their business and need to acknowledge is now a valid part of our industry. Things like going paperless, things like,
Yes.
using mobile technology that's going to allow you to be more mobilely accessible, things
Hmm.
like text messaging, for crying out loud. These are the types of things that agents really should make an effort to focus on and be better in their business,
Hmm.
as opposed to maybe running around and trying to find the latest and greatest something that they don't necessarily need. But that being said, you're going to hear a lot of people who say all of that technology is something they shouldn't be running around chasing,
Well,
right?
that's just, I mean, that's the argument always is, and really the problem is that one agent is trying to be all these different things.
Yeah.
And I think every once in a while they find something they actually enjoy doing, and it might be chasing shiny new objects because that fills them up, right? It gives them a sense of pleasure in their job.
Mm.
And all the other stuff that they don't really want to do is sitting there waiting for them over there. And by the way, income building activities can be different
Mhm.
for different people. But,
So
there are some basics, right? Like obviously if you want to get a listing, then you're going to have to be sitting in a listing presentation at some point. So making that appointment is probably a top priority.
yeah.
And most people are going to agree with that, I think. But, it's the relationship business and how do you connect? And so I know we've talked about this a lot, but this is you're quite active on social media, quite active. So if the average agent were watching you and thinking that they had to keep up with what Valerie was doing, they might get a little, off trail.
Sure.
What do you say to your agents?
Yeah. I mean, I got a notification yesterday that I'm number 85 for the month of June in the top 100 most active Twitter accounts in Toronto.
Wow, good for you.
My husband's like, well, maybe not so good.
Chatty Cathy.
Um, so yeah, I am extremely active on social media, which is funny because I just joined social media, Facebook and Twitter specifically, maybe just around 4 or 5 years ago. I really haven't been active that long. It was something that I actually sort of, and I fully admit this, I've admitted this before, is that I went into it kicking and screaming.
Mhm.
I still to this day have a very love hate relationship with Facebook.
Right.
I love it because it allows me to connect with great people and have great conversations. But I hate it because it's one of those things like it's like you get a pet, right? Like it's cute the first day, but then you have to keep feeding it
Right.
after that. And Facebook is very much that way. You can't really stop because once you've invested the effort into to growing a following or a conversation group, you can't just stop showing up there.
Brand and everything that you're trying to create.
Sure. And so it's definitely interesting, but I definitely choose right now in my life to make the time for that. And that's not something that everybody has the luxury of doing. I have the ability to make the time or choose to make the time for social media because I feel that right now it's a very, very vital part of both, I guess my personal brand as well as my role as a trainer.
Okay, so that's a powerful statement. Why do you think it is such a big piece?
I think it's essential to me in my business personally because it allows me to create relationships that are going to not only feed me more information that will help me to stay current with the stuff that I train on, but I also feel like it's my connection to a lot of other parts of the industry that allow me to just kind of know what's going on. And, it's a part of being a technology trainer, part of being a trainer at all is just having constant current information.
Yeah.
And part of the struggle of that is just finding it,
Yep.
right? Going out and curating it all the time.
Yes.
But social media, I have the ability to just kind of keep an ear to the ground on conversations that are happening all the
Yeah.
time. And if I didn't have that, the amount of like just the amount of reading, the amount of research, the amount of stuff that I would have to do that I don't have to do because I'm online is really important. But the other thing that's really important about it is, I have in Ontario in Atlantic Canada, my primary region where I've been for the last couple of years is I have 10,000 agents. who are in my territory. Those are 10,000 people that I want to create relationships with, that I want to positively influence through training, that I want to provide information to. And there's just no good way to stay in touch with 10,000
No, there's
people
not.
without.
It's a lot of people. A lot of people.
Yeah, but I think that applies even if your database is 300 people. I mean, are you physically able to make 300 calls a week?
No,
I, I don't see it
no,
happening.
absolutely not.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, I completely agree with you. And I think the discussion becomes, well, we've had this discussion too. And I kind of wanted to sort of segue into that because, and we'll get to that. We want to discuss sort of the noise in the space. But before we go there, I think I look at how you craft your relationships with your agents. And this is another funny discussion, frankly, because there's a lot of talk about, all these inspirational posts, and how that's creating, all this noise in the space. And the truth is I mean, I'm like you. I believe in feeding my mind good stuff. And if
Yeah.
it's a little cheese ball, but it gets me thinking positively and moving me forward in my career or my life in any way, shape, or form, then that's a plus. Then I'm one up. And I believe in them. And I often share some of the great ones. In fact, I could rely entirely on you to feed me all of the, speaking of curating and filtering, like I'll just rely on Val to send me all the good stuff because you dig up some really good stuff. And I always get thinking. It always puts me in a better mindset. And I think that's really powerful stuff. But now let's talk about the noise. There's so many, because when you and I started, it was a lot quieter back then. And when you said something, you kind of had a chance to stand out and be heard. These days, that's tricky business. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I definitely think there's a strategy to it. I have a very specific strategy to the content that I put on, specifically on Facebook. I know it may seem like to someone on the outside who doesn't necessarily think about, curating social content that there's, I just kind of throw stuff out there, but I do have a very, very specific strategy. And I do tell people if you want to be successful, using social media as a marketing tool, that you do have to have a strategy. And it's much more than just posting every day at this time and posting, this kind of content. You have to be completely invested in knowing what your audience wants. Mm-hmm. You have to study what they react to. You have to do more of what they react to positively and less of what they react to negatively. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure that what you're creating and what you're, giving has actual value.
What?
And your value.
That's crazy talk.
It's going to be so different depending on whoever your main demographic of your audience is. And, it's like throwing a party. Like you can't have 16, 13-year-olds over and serve, canapes. You have to serve pizza.
Right.
And you have to know what your audience wants. And, that's something that I've spent a ton of time perfecting and I'm not perfect, but working on perfecting in my own content all the time.
Right. And I think you have it down to a fine art. You truly do. So what do you advise agents that you're training in terms of how do they, because I've seen, and I know you've seen so many people really struggle. It seems like a simple concept, but I think as soon as you take social and you put, marketing in their heads, all that comes out is broadcast, broadcast, broadcast. So what do you tell people? How do you advise people?
Well, I did this presentation last year at a bar camp, and it was how not to be douchey on social media.
Yeah, I love that.
And I toy around with the idea of making it public and putting it on SlideShare, but I'm just too chicken. But it was really harsh, but funny.
Yeah.
But it was basically an example of what everybody does wrong on Facebook. And I literally took screenshots, blacked out the names, and did an entire presentation of just screenshots. It was name and shame, the whole thing.
Oh, nice.
But, I look back at that presentation every once in a while and I realize, like, those core things that I tell people not to do, like, they're pretty universal. Mm-hmm. And it's not rocket science. It's be real, give value, be interesting, and don't market to people the way you don't want to be marketed to. right?
Right.
Um, Stop posting crap that goes nowhere and means nothing. If somebody posts, hey, repost this and you might win $50 from Costco, don't repost
No.
it. Like, that's the kind of noise that I personally hate.
Yes.
That's the kind of crap that I wish would disappear off of Facebook. And I'm not very popular for saying this, but I have said this publicly quite a bit before, is that if I had a magic wand, I would take every single listing and every single open house off of social media right now.
Oh, yeah, not popular at all.
Because the reality is that's not what it's for. It's not called newspaper media. It's called social media. I'm not going to go, hey, great house. I'm not looking, but totally glad you posted that. It's really interesting. Can I see more of those? No.
But
like, that's the kind of noise we need less
I
of.
agree. But you have seen agents get creative with their listings. So for instance, someone will go inside a property and they'll showcase, the spectacular, I don't know, some feature, like the granite is out of this world and there's like a Jesus design inside the, whatever it happens to be. And then that's a story we're sharing. It's like, holy crap, I can't believe you saw that. That's awesome. And now we still know that you're marketing properties. We still know that you're active in your business. So we've seen those ones. I tend to agree with you. The ones that really don't work is when you get the open house invitation from your contact in, New York.
Iowa.
Probably not going to make that open house. But thanks.
I mean, look, I totally am not I'm not ruling out the people that are creative and interesting and, provide some great value. That stuff totally makes sense. But, when you're just posting a link from the MLS every time you get a new listing, that stuff has got to stop.
I agree. Well,
in addition,
sorry, go ahead.
Like when you go back and, no, it's okay. You were saying, like the inspirational stuff. I think there's a time and place for that kind of stuff. The time and place for me personally is generally first thing in the morning, 8 a.m., one post with something inspirational. And when I say inspirational, me, it's generally semi-sarcastic. And pointed.
Yeah.
That's, for me, that's inspiration. Other people, it's, it's a sunset picture with a grape. I don't know, whatever. But the reality is that, you have to go beyond that. You have to have some kind of content beyond that as well. Because the reality is that whoever you are online should reflect who you are in real life. I know, huge epiphany there, right? We could just stop there. That it should be just who you are. And if I meet you and the only thing that ever comes out of your mouth are, Zig Ziglar quotes, fine, great. But there's got to be more to you than that. There's got to be more to, why you do what you do and why you would be great helping people do what you do and why you want to, do better at your business or grow or whatever. That stuff has to come through at some point.
I believe agents really, really struggle with it. And I think it's because we overthink it to death. Like, honestly, I think where we get super stuck is when you're like, well, I don't know. I wanted to make money. I thought I would make a great real estate agent. That's why I wanted to do it. And they haven't really self-identified. Well, no, I wanted to create a life of freedom, or, I wanted to be available to my family, or like everyone wants to help people. I think that's sort of kind of universal. So it has to be a little bit more than wanting to help people and making money. There's got to be something else going on internally for you where it makes sense. And then, we have like Michael Thorne, for instance, who loves doing video, who's fabulous at doing video, who would do video even if he wasn't in real estate anymore because it's something he's passionate about. Or another buddy of mine loves riding bikes. And it's a big, big part of, his personal brand because that's what he loves. And I think the problem has always been, like, don't you find that so many agents were always trying to be everything to everyone? They were afraid of losing that next potential client by being too specific. And they wanted to be far more general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had this conversation with somebody recently, and it was around flavors of ice cream. Because, as women, we relate everything to food, but
yes, we do.
We do. But it was around, like, don't be vanilla unless you are.
Right.
And, like, if you are vanilla in real life, there's nothing wrong with vanilla.
Some people really like vanilla.
I know. And some people, exactly, some people really like vanilla, but don't feel like you have to be vanilla in your marketing and your business and your personality in order to try and cast a really wide net. Because I personally, I might not want to work with somebody who's vanilla. I want to work with somebody who's chunky monkey because
Yeah.
I relate better to chunky monkey. And that's really what I'm looking for. Right. And if everyone's vanilla, who do you go to when you want chunky monkey? So
I don't know, but that is
I,
definitely a tweetable. Valerie, like Valerie is chunky monkey. Just say it.
well,
Yeah.
in more ways than one.
Yeah.
But I just think I think it's so important to be authentic and to give value. But I also find that I think that, real estate agents have got to stop. And I totally agree with Scott Stratton on this and stop marketing and start engaging,
Right.
right? We've been taught for years and years and years that we have to advertise and market, and we are marketers, we are
Yes.
salespeople. The reality is that you can't say we're marketers, we're salespeople, blah, 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 but then turn around and say this is a people business.
Right.
So we're not marketers, we're relationship managers.
Fair.
Right?
Fair, but here's where it gets interesting, because to be fair to the agents, where are they learning this? Like how, like they aren't naturally built to understand that. And
Well, that's what I was just going to say. And the problem is that because they're marketing and advertising for so long, they think in terms of what would it look like in a newspaper ad.
yes,
And so what it would look like in a newspaper ad or on a bus bench is what they end up. That's what they end up being everywhere they go, right? They are their business cards.
Right.
Like they walk around walking business card. And so they're not being taught to sort of think outside of that. For instance, yes, I want to take listings off of Facebook because I think they're annoying. But what I want agents to do is go onto Facebook and start talking about what makes their neighborhoods great, why you would want to live there, the stuff that they can offer you as far as intel on that neighborhood when you're looking to move there that you might not know. All of those kind of things that make you a fantastic agent, that's the stuff you should be focusing on, not your listings.
Amen.
Because when I go looking to create a relationship with you, I don't care how many listings you have right now. I care about, are you honest? Are you intelligent? Are you going to communicate well with me? Do you have information on these neighborhoods? Do you know how to articulate that information to me? Do you have a personality that I'm going to work well with? I care about all that.
Do you not care? Do you not care that they clearly have done so much business that they are competent and they will protect your interest in a negotiation? Does that not matter to you?
Maybe I'm an anomaly there, but I'm not the type of person that would necessarily care whether you did 50 deals last year or 15.
That's good news.
I want to know that you did, you did those deals with competency,
Mhm.
that you are available, that you will communicate with me on a regular basis, that you will be honest, and that you will work hard. For me, that's my personal opinion. There's got to be a contingent of people out there for sure that care about how many deals you've done.
I often
right?
thought,
but I'm not one of them.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I've often felt that, part of the consumer wanting that is also because the consumer doesn't fully understand the litigiousness of this business, and they don't fully anticipate all the risks and why it's so important to have someone who's really protecting your interests. And that's part of the industry, profile problem that we've had, is like trying to educate the consumer on this isn't just a put up a sign and we'll hold your hand kind of a process, so that it's actually, there's lots of things to watch out for, and deals can go really sideways really quickly. And competent agents are, when you talk about being competent, it's far more than just being a good communicator with the consumer. It's often, anticipating the pitfalls and where things might go wrong. Now, having said that, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the importance of being a great communicator, and that is, I think, a huge value. And also understanding the product and the neighborhoods is huge. And I think that's another big fear that I know we've talked about a lot. Like everybody's, been so afraid of releasing the information, and that's been a hard transition. Do you find that your agents have sort of embraced that now more?
I think there are some. I think that there are still, fairly large pockets of agents, probably all over the world, if not, North America, that still feel very, um, scared. Like I've said this to you before, and
Yeah.
again, not doesn't make me popular, but I genuinely feel that a lot of agents um, operate out of fear
Yeah.
a lot of the time. Afraid of
Yeah.
not getting that next deal, afraid of not getting that paycheck, afraid of not saying the right thing,
Yes.
afraid of saying the wrong thing, whatever it is, it's fear. And it's unfortunate that our industry really does instill fear into its members a lot of the time, right? If you're, it's just this, you're in it for yourself, and we're all competing against each other, and we're not on the same team. And it's that fear of, I'm alone in this. What am I going to do? And people are afraid to ask questions because they don't want people to think they're stupid or
Yes.
incompetent, afraid to ask questions because they think someone's going to, God, if I had $1 for every time I heard somebody say, oh, I'm going to report them to wherever. And I'm like, oh, for God's sake, stop reporting and start teaching. You
Yes.
know, you would
Amen.
have far less problems if every time you had a complaint with an agent, you taught them the right way to do it as opposed to going and reporting them. But that's
Love
a whole
it.
other topic.
Oh my gosh, that's a
Um,
good topic though. I love that concept.
but like I think because there is that fear, like agents tend to find something that worked well for them in the past, or they find something that they feel is their value proposition, and so they cling to it quite tightly, and they're afraid to kind of give that up or share that. And I think that's detrimental at the end of the day. So like when you're talking specifically to new agents, one of the biggest struggles for new agents is getting seasoned agents to tell them stuff.
Isn't that the
You
truth?
know?
It's a big problem. I really do. It's why I created Agent Quest. That's exactly it right there in a nutshell. It's they are the ones that need it the most and are left to figure it all out themselves. And
Mm,
couldn't agree with you more. And my heart bleeds for them. I think it's such a challenge. I was just talking to a guy yesterday from Costa Rica, and he was even saying that the agents in his office are very generous and sharing, but he
mhm.
also in on the tail of that was saying, but they're really busy and they're running off in 1,000. So I'm like, okay, well, so you're still left to figure it out, right? Like it's a tough industry as an independent person trying to get the information. I love your idea of the industry helping each other and instead of reporting. I love that. That was so beautiful.
Yeah, someday we'll get
I
there.
know, right? If we ran the
So,
world,
but
no, things would be different. That's a let's see. Let's segue into we're going down to San Fran. You're taking your entire team. By the time this gets shown, you will be back by then, probably. So, why don't we talk a little bit about what you hope to achieve? Like, why are conferences sort of a big piece of what you're building?
I'm a big proponent of perpetual learning. Say that 5 times
I
fast.
don't think I
But
will. Yeah.
I think that you have to be a constant student. And I think that that's something that, is especially true in an industry like ours because things change so quickly.
Mm,
Technology and laws and just in general, things change so
yeah.
quickly, and you have to constantly be learning. I love that I work with a lot of people who feel like they want to learn something every day,
Yeah.
and that's the main goal of getting out of bed every day is to learn something. And so conferences like Inman, like going to NAR, like the great Remax events that we get an opportunity to go to, fantastic for me because it gives me an opportunity to brush shoulders with people who are far smarter than me
Yes.
and teach me something every day, and don't do it in a way that makes me feel dumb, but does it in a way that makes me feel lucky to be able to know them. And Inman is definitely one of those where I know that I'm going to be surrounded by some pretty amazing people with lots of various opinions and personalities and ideas. And I'm bringing my entire team this year. So bringing them all, and have challenged them all to come away with 3 specific ideas for new courses that they can share with our network in the coming year. So
Love that.
go and find that one idea that really like sticks out to you and you think, great, let's do that. So whether that's anything really. It's just, you got to come back with a couple of concrete ideas.
Well, I think that, in fact, I think it was Seth Price from Playstore who wrote a post. It probably was a year, maybe even 2 years ago, where he was like, here's what you can do to get the most out of your conference experience. And he sort of highlighted like all this. And that is one of them. It's like, go in knowing kind of that you want to collect at least one or two sort of really solid ideas that you can walk away with and take home and implement something, like something actionable that you can actually do. For agents, for instance, versus, you and your team that can like take something and build an entire course around maybe, or something like that. There's always new tools and stuff that we can focus on. But I find the things that are most interesting now is, and I love how the pendulum's swinging back to more of like business design. So like for me as an agent, it was always about, how do I scale my business? How do I take it to the next level? And you never really see, that course. That course doesn't really exist. And those are the kinds of things that I'm always looking for. So I'll be curious to see, I'm watching the trends too, and I'm seeing a lot on, I think Teams is honestly going to be the new next thing. And I was just talking to the divas down in Seattle, and they were so lovely. They shared with me all their inside stuff. They showed me all of their processes, and it's just, there is a way to do it. And I'm sure different teams have different systems and processes, but it's quite fascinating when you start to sort of dig into that a little bit. I'm monopolizing the conversation. There was the other thing I wanted to say was that you are going to be an ambassador at Inman this year, which is pretty cool. And I think are you not sitting on a panel?
I am sitting on a panel. Very interesting topic.
Which is?
Adapting and adopting. So new technology. So basically, like, the technology exists, but how do you get people to actually now start using it? So I don't, it's one of those topics that I get a little bit feisty about. So it'll be really interesting. I'm on the panel, and I don't know the others who are on the panel. So God bless them.
So why are you? You gotta give us more. So you get feisty because?
Well, I just feel like, I think I want to be past this conversation by now, and we're not. I want to be past the conversation of, should we or should we not? Oh my God, yes. Like, should we get a computer, honey? I don't know. What do you think? Like, I do. I get a little bit feisty about this because I feel like, okay, people, like, if you have the time to sit around and have a conversation about whether or not you should adopt some new technology in your business, you could have done something about it by now.
Right.
People that sit around and decide they need to sit through an entire session of a speaker teaching them that millennials like to be texted and contacted differently, so that they can decide whether they want to adjust their communication styles to attract millennials. Really?
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see which direction this panel goes, because panels are always fluid depending on who's on them. Yes. So it's great that I don't know the people that are on the panel. So that'll be fun.
They don't know what they're in for.
Yeah, but maybe they're feisty too, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I genuinely feel like we should be past this point now of, should we or should we not adopt new technologies? Look, I don't think everybody needs to use every technology in their business that comes out, but at some point you have to be open to adapting to new things.
Yes.
This is the basic conversation. Like, when we got fax machines 20 years ago, did you decide you were going to start to use a fax machine, or did you dig your heels in and go, that's it for me, I might as well retire?
Don't you think, though, it's typical, and you'll see it in life in general, not just in real estate, but in life, where people think they have this mindset that when I get there, I can relax, right? Like, so I'll work, and then I'll get there, and then I'll, retire, relax, the business will just happen. I don't know exactly what people believe, but to me, it seems like there is sort of this, I'll do it all now, but I shouldn't have to continue to do that later. And of course, what we find out is when you get there, well, there is no there, and you got to keep doing it. Like, it never really ends. So adapting is sort of we should adapt the idea that we're going to have to continue to adapt, because it's just an ongoing battle.
Yeah. Well, and I also think that there are a lot of people that are, they're genuinely afraid of the technology.
Right.
They don't have the ability to commit time whether it's because of other things in their life or because, of fear or whatever. They don't have the ability to commit the time to it. They don't know what they should adopt and what they shouldn't. So they're not getting guidance in that regard. And so they're staring down the barrel of all of these changes at one time, and they're thinking, I don't know where to get started, and so they just don't do anything.
I
And
completely agree.
those people, in a lot of cases, it sounds completely ridiculous, but they're just waiting for it to go away. And they're thinking, you know what, if I ignore Twitter, at some point it'll go away.
Yes.
If I ignore Facebook or social media in general,
Yes.
at some point it'll go away. Coincidentally, that's exactly how I feel about Google Plus, but that's me personally. I want that go away. But people are like, if and I genuinely feel like in the US, and I could be wrong, but there are agents that are just thinking, if I ignore Zillow, at some point it's going to go away, and the reality is that this is the reality now.
Yep.
And if you don't adopt to the changes that have taken place to this point, when the next thing happens, you're going to be even further behind.
Yep.
You're not going to be able to just skip that step and move on. You're going to be further behind.
Yep.
And I just had this conversation with my 13-year-old stepdaughter, right, about school. Like, when you get to grade 8 or 9 and you don't learn something, like when you're in kindergarten and you don't learn something, the teacher keeps teaching it to you until you learn it.
Right.
But when you get to grade 8 or 9 and you don't learn something, the teacher skips over you, keeps teaching the class who does get it, and you basically miss it. And you may end up never being able to understand fractions for the rest of your life because you skipped over that part, because your teacher's not going to come back, right? And so I really, truly believe that that's the perfect analogy for a lot of agents and technology in their business right now, is that they think, if I ignore this paperless thing, or if I ignore e-signatures, or if I ignore Facebook, eventually that's going to go away. Something else is going to take its place, and I'll just be able to adopt to that.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that you may have not captured that fundamental thing that you need in order for that next thing to work. And so you're that much further behind.
So I guess my thinking is that there is a percentage of the agents that are looking at retirement in the next, however many years, and that you can sort of understand why they'll be like, you know what, I'm going to continue to do business the way I've always done business. And there are people in my market who are top producers who, quite frankly, their market is used to getting their, coffee coupon in the mail every month, and they wouldn't even blink if they never got a text or a tweet from this agent. And to be perfectly frank, it just doesn't suit him. Like, it just doesn't. But you know what I mean? It's like there's and to your Google Plus point, I have to chime in on Google Plus and say, just for SEO purposes alone and Google authorship alone and YouTube alone, like, are you kidding me? It's Google. It's Google. It can't possibly hurt you. It can only help. I will agree, it is a bit of a ghost town at the moment, and it might never be more than that. It might never be more than that. Anyway, my 2 cents. Back to the actual conversation.
I don't mean to try and scare people, because I definitely wouldn't want to say, oh my gosh, like, if you don't adopt to all this technology, you're going to basically be out of business. But you know how they say, like, financial planners say to you, if you don't have, like, I don't know, whatever it is, 3 to 5 months worth of living expenses saved up, then, like, you're basically in dire straits.
Yep.
Like everyone.
Yep.
Right. So, but I genuinely feel like, that is really applicable to, adopting to new technologies and new things in our industry as well. So it used to be, whereas if you just did the basics, things like door knocking and regular mail outs and calling your past customers and staying in touch with them and working your sphere, those are the basics, right? They're never going to change. If you just did that 20 years ago, you had a very probably prosperous and balanced business. Mm-hmm. And even if you didn't adopt anything new and you just continued to do that, your business would continue to prosper for years. Right. But that curve is getting shorter in that if you don't adopt anything new, the lifespan of your business, I genuinely believe, is going to get shorter and shorter if you don't ever adopt anything new. So if you're not getting a website, doing any online marketing, have an online presence, working your sphere through social media, thinking about incorporating video, starting to do more mobile technologies, be available by texting, those types of things, not all of it, but those types of things. If you're not going to invest in adopting any of that technology into your business right now, your business is probably not sustainable more than 5 years with just the basics.
And so now take it just that little bit further and explain why you believe that. Like, so you haven't done any of these things, you don't have that presence, and you aren't using any of the current tools. What exactly do you think? Like, where will it start to fall off the rails?
Well, consumers aren't going to be able to find you, for one. Consumers aren't going to be able to connect with you as easily as they like. Let's face it, these days, if you want to reach an airline, what's the fastest way to reach an airline?
Online.
Tweet them.
Tweet them.
Tweet an airline, instantly you are going to get a response, especially if it's a complaint, because that kind of stuff can snowball,
yes.
right? We've seen it happen.
United breaks guitars.
Exactly. But if you called United and you wanted to talk about switching your flight, how long are you going to be on hold?
No, yes.
40 minutes?
Yeah. And nobody has the patience. Consumers have gotten so spoiled. We expect like immediate now.
And that's exactly the point. Consumers expect to be able to contact you that way. They expect to get that kind of service. They expect to be able to find you. In fact, more consumers search business Facebook pages now than they actually search Google for their website.
Yeah.
So I'm more likely as a consumer now to go in and interact with a company on Facebook on their page than I am to go and Google them and look at their website. Not to mention, our attention spans have gotten significantly smaller because of the internet. I'm not going to go to a website and search through 3 different tiny little fonts of contact us to try and find them. I'm literally going to go and I'm going to tweet them or I'm going to Facebook them.
Can I tell you a pet peeve? When I go to somebody's site and I'm looking for their email address and they only have the contact form, that makes me crazy. Yeah.
Or anywhere.
Yeah.
But consumers, and the reason why I genuinely believe that your lifespan of your business is going to grow considerably shorter the less information and less technology you adopt, is because consumers will basically demand you adopt it or they will find someone else.
Yep.
And so like I saw this recently with a Thai restaurant that opened in my neighborhood. And, you know, we don't have very many Thai restaurants sort of within walking distance of where we are. So it was pretty exciting when they opened, but they didn't do any advertising. They didn't let the neighborhood know when they were open. They didn't have any signage saying when they were open. They didn't have a website. They did, you know, like you couldn't find them basically anywhere. I went to try and find them online to find a menu to order. There was nothing. And I just thought, you know what, forget it. And I moved on and they closed their doors. 6 months later, the restaurant is gone. And I thought, you know what, they could have been the best Thai restaurant in town, but nobody was going to take the effort to actually drive there to get a menu.
Wow.
So the reality is that if you're not adopting anything new in your business and you're not willing to be found and you're not willing to be contacted in new ways, you're not willing to adopt things like digital signatures or having a website or any SEO or literally any of that stuff, at some point, the consumers are just going to stop looking for you and they're going to go find somebody else.
I tend to agree with you. But now, earlier we talked about these poor agents and the level of fear that we instill in them. So how do we help them? Yeah, exactly. They're going to be shaking in their boots right now. How do we appease that?
Look, the good news is that you don't have to be, and I say this all the time, you don't have to be everywhere and do everything. You just have to do one thing really well.
Right.
And so, you know, the first step to combating fear is just starting something, right?
Yes.
And so you just pick one thing and you decide that you're going to work on that until you're confident enough to layer something else on.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what I say.
It's like learning to put on makeup, right?
Oh.
You always start with mascara and then you work in the other stuff. But
you do? I've been doing it wrong.
Isn't that the first thing you put on when you're young? 13, you want mascara or lipstick, right? You start with one thing and then I don't know, whatever. I grew up practically Amish, so I don't. Okay, wrong analogy.
Makeup might not be your strongest analogy.
No, got that. You're right. but it's like anything, really. You just start with one thing and you grow from there. And so I would never say to an agent, especially a new agent, bless their hearts, I would never say like, do it all, have all of this, have a website, have SEO, have, all this stuff. I would say, just be found somewhere.
Yes.
Be Googleable, be able to let somebody find you easily and contact you easily. Remove the barriers of, click here, click here, click here, click here, then fill out a form to contact you.
Brilliant.
I mean, you have a cell phone, put your cell phone number everywhere, make it available. And if you don't want somebody to contact you, just turn it off.
Yep.
Like make it easy. Stop removing remove the barriers and stop putting them up in the first place.
I love that. That's such profoundly simple advice. And I think that's where everyone's falling off the rails, is they're just overcomplicating everything. And I think if we just bring it back, get real about the things that will actually be, actionable, moving the needle forward in your business, that if you just, I love that. So I always say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? Like, let's not do it all right out of the gate. Let's build out a year plan. Let's look, long term, where do we want to be in a year? Okay, now let's reverse engineer it back. And let's pick 3 tools that we really want to hyper target on this year. And let's start with one. And then sort of build as you go. I mean, everyone wants to be, 0 to 100 right out of the gate. And it's not the best practice, in my opinion. I think it's a little smarter to just sort of, feel your way along and figure out what works and what doesn't work. Love that. Great advice. Great advice. So Val, I will be seeing you in a couple of weeks. I'm very excited. We'll have to do a follow-up show down the road where we talk about how feisty you were on your panel and whether or not your makeup analogy flew or not. And I just want to take the time to thank you so much for joining me for this conversation that matters. The one thing that you need to answer for me before I let you go, and this is something I'm asking all my guests, is the legacy you want to leave. So, this is your one life, we're going to assume, and you're looking back and you're like, here's what I've built, here's what I've left. What is it?
Well, gosh, I know you said you were going to ask me that question.
Well, it's what's meaningful to you. It doesn't even have to be legacy. It's like, what is truly meaningful to you in your life?
I'd like to just, I'm, like you said earlier, I like to just help people. And I would like to think that when I'm looking back on my life, that I was, I provided some sort of assistance and help to the people that I work with and work for, and maybe a little comic relief as well along the way. For me, I'd like to think that, I'd like to find a way to sort of help people not just make more money, but also, be a little bit better people as well. Maybe I can do a little bit of that now. I don't know. But I think it's, for me, it's just, I've never been the type of person that wants to just go out and sell. I've always wanted to be the one behind the scenes, helping them do better and sell more. And I think for me, that's probably always going to be the way it is. I think as far as, I don't know, as far as my current role, I'd really just like to make, the trainers that get to work on my team even better people and better, at helping other people. So I'm not super philosophical in this regard. I'd like to be helpful and funny.
You are both of those things.
That's all I've really got going for me. But
you are definitely both of those things. We're really fortunate. Your people, honestly, Remax Integra, they were smart people when they hired you. And I know they're very fortunate to have you. And the Remax camp, I've sat in on it. So that's open to pretty much anybody, right?
Yeah. Anybody, all summer long. And you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Camp Remax. So even all of the sessions from last year are there, and we'll put all the ones from this year there. So they'll be there for posterity. So anybody's welcome to go and check those out. And we're just trying to pass on great information.
And it is. So Valerie, if anybody wants to reach out to you specifically, how can they find you?
Facebook, always. Facebook is easiest, facebook.com/val.remax, or also on Twitter at Valerie Garcia 1.
Don't forget the 1. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great conversation. I knew it would be.
Anytime.
Talk soon.